to be talking about quantum computing. I mean, that's going to be exciting. Obviously, there's a name out there in the semiconductor world that everybody's forgotten. Not everybody, but most everybody. We're going to be hitting that and a whole lot more. We got to talk a little Bo Nix. We got some sports stuff. It's going to be great. We'll see you in just a second. Giddy up. All right. Look at this, man. It's the Rebel's Edge. I got my man Justin. He's back in my favorite place on the planet Earth. This guy is living the dream, man. You left Maine to get out here. I mean, there ain't nothing better. You know, Mele Kalikimaka. We're only a month away from that, man. It's almost Christmas time. It's really exciting, but I'll tell you what, the other thing great about where you are, and we talked about this just last week in Miami, I got to tell you something. The fact that the market is closed at about, call it 11 o'clock in the morning, that, you know what? I know it's an early wake up, but daggone it, man, you get the whole day. How's it going, Jared?
Me, probably, right?
Sorry, I meant to
okay, man. No, it's okay. It's going
Jared,
great.
Justin.
Yeah. Like, the main thing, like at 80-degree switch, I'm hearing from people back home that are really, really cold right now. And I am not. It's the same temperature 24/7. And I love it.
It is special, man. It's a special place, great people and everything else. All right, man, let's dive right into this whole thing. Let's start off the macro minute. I've got something for you. I just got a couple of words here. Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. I think that's all I got to say. Everybody's looking at that. The excitement is there. And bang, the S&P started ripping to the upside. The Dow got up there over 500. Now it's up about 300 points, but that's a huge catalyst for today. What do you have for the macro?
Yeah, I got two things. So I agree with that. Anytime you got a hedge fund manager, a former hedge fund manager who's now going to be the Treasury Secretary, Market's going to love that. And the second thing, my macro minute is this episode. Anyone who's watching right now, do not skip through this. This is going to be tradable as all get out. There's a lot of UOA here. You're going to love to see this.
That's unusual option activity for the people who don't know, and he's exactly right. We've got a jam-packed show for you today. All right, as far as fantastic futures, let's kick that off. We've got a lot in front of us. We've got PCE. Obviously, that's something we all know what the Fed has talked about for a while. We've got the Treasury Secretary, as you're talking about, that's very going to be probably pretty kind to the markets. I think that's a good thing. But I just look over right now, and I'm talking about the 10-year. We are seeing a pretty substantial drop in the 10-year. I mean, it's since the election, it is a significant drop. And here we are right now at 428 or somewhere around that ballpark area. That's a pretty significant drop from where we were not too many days ago. What do you think about that? What's your fantastic future?
Yeah, it's the 10-year. It's down 2.5% today, finally. Maybe it's telling us what it's probably going to do for these FOMC minutes and this PCE that we're getting this week. And I think Scott Bessent probably helps. And also, you got the VIX. It's down 1.5% today. It's looking like we're leading into a good December.
It's tough for the volatility index to get up there and stay up there. And I've been preaching that forever, but a lot of people just look past that, and you're exactly right. I mean, we see this thing pulling back. Now, it doesn't mean it can't spike right back up again, but you know what? The ranges have been pretty tight. They've gotten a little bit wider of late, but the ranges are tight, and the volatility index is certainly something every one of us should always be watching very closely. All right, let's get to some of our stocks because I'm pretty excited about this whole thing. Let's start off with Intel. Now, Intel is a name that basically people just gave up on it, right? I mean, they completely said, you know what? I'm done. Intel is not the right spot. It's not the right place. And they were pretty correct mostly. I mean, you look at NVIDIA, the runs that's had, AMD, some of the runs that's had, multiple different other names out there. But an $8 billion grant from the CHIPS Act might actually continue to turn things around because since late August, early September, we have been seeing nothing but unusual option activity jumping in here, including what we're seeing in the move today in the stock. The underlying has been jumping pretty nicely too. We're talking about going from give or take, call it closer to 20 to get all the way up today. We got north of 25 and a half. So this is a stock that's been on a move. That might not sound a lot to people, but I'll tell you what, I always liken it this way. What if it was a $200 stock that's now trading at 255? You'd probably jump up and down. that's exactly the same move. So Intel right now, it certainly has the wind at its back. What do you think?
Totally agree. And if we look at the UOA, they think that the wind is going to keep going. Look, like you said, Uncle Sam's obviously got their back. $8 billion grant is nice for factory building. They also cut dividends, cut jobs. It's a long game thing. This UOA that we're looking at here is still active. It's huge. It's out in May. It's in the 40 and 35 strike calls. Crazy. What I'm looking at, though, for this, maybe some of these rumors that we've been hearing that a company might be coming along and trying to buy Intel. Look, last 4 years wouldn't have happened. No shot. Next 4 years, it's in the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I think everybody better take note. And to your point, with that UOA that we've got out there, they're not only going out there to March and they're buying the March 40s, 20,000 of those, but how about those May 35s that they're buying 10,000 of those? There has been activity in here. Some of it shorter term that's already gone. It's already made some of those moves, but now we're starting to look all the way out into 2025. And certainly there are folks out there that think this stock has plenty of room still to the upside. All right, next up, we've got SoundHound. Now, this is one of those names that just not too terribly long ago, this is a stock that was under 6. Well, it's no longer under 6. It made a really nice move. The high of the year so far has been a little over 10, but the recent run has been absolutely incredible. And I think a lot of that has to do with, we've got to give credit to AI once again. And when we look at SoundHound, the AI here is something that's really unique. It's voice AI and the efficiencies that's bringing in. It's bringing so much to this stock, and there's certainly a lot of folks that are jumping onto this one. This one's pretty interesting, and you've got some UOA in this one as well, right?
Yeah, if you're looking at SoundHound, you're like, what is this? It's Siri's indie cousin. NVIDIA is invested in them. They're cool. There is UOA, and we've also been trading this in the roundup off and on for a little while. So there was UOA back at the $5 level, and we were in that in the roundup leading up to those earnings. We rolled up, took a nice cut. Earnings came in. They weren't so great, but you know what? They just formed a higher low, bursted over that little swing high around $8. And I just love when all the technicals align. You can just draw a line right across the chart and you can see, oh, okay, this was their high. And now they came back down to test it, and right to the penny, that's where they stopped. And that's where buyers stepped in. I love it. I honestly like them all the way up to maybe $10.30. It's where that last swing high was.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that a lot, man. All right, next up, we got D-Wave Quantum. We talk about quantum computing all the time. There's plenty of different companies out there. You could go through the whole list if you wanted to, but don't do it. There's too much. We don't have enough time. But this is a really interesting area. And I'll tell you what, these are companies that really are living in a very, very tight space. And when I say that, this is what I mean. You look at what the shorts are in many of these different companies. You look at where they are in terms of the cash burn. We're not talking about cash flows. We're talking about cash burn. All that being said, with that high short interest, you start to see a little bit of that squeeze. And I think we're seeing some of that today. We certainly are looking somewhere between 8 and 12% is the short. Well, today it looks like a 52-week high. We got almost up to $4. It was 377. This is a name that I think everybody needs to keep an eye on, and we've got unusual option in this as well. And that's what makes it so exciting. UOA is in every single one of these stocks today, and it's very, very meaningful. And what do you think about this one? Is the UOA right? Are they going to keep on rolling?
Man, I gotta try not to talk too long about this. This is such a weird story. Okay, so if you like meme stocks, you're gonna like this. These guys claim to have the fastest quantum computing computer, and they claim to have been able to attack these encryption algorithms with a quantum attack, and all that's mumbo jumbo. What you need to look at is the fact that Pete's right. This is a $1 stock not long ago. It popped like 50% on Friday. We saw some UOA in it. They got it for as low as 10 cents. That UOA went up to 60 cents. There's this massive volume gap between, call it $9 and $3. For those who don't know, volume gaps are kind of like trading a normal gap. Usually, if we can get up in a couple dollars into that price action and the auction wants to test that high, all I would say is this: if you're going to trade this, which maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't, that's up to your risk tolerance. You got to be so disciplined. Anytime that you see a small stock that you hadn't heard of before this start to pop 50%, you got to say, all right, we're playing hot potato. I don't want this thing to explode in my hands, but maybe with options, and discipline, I can make a little bit of money on this.
Yep. And it can be pretty fun too along the way. But most key thing that he said, discipline. We talk about that every single day here at Market Rebellion. And it's important because that's what options demand. You have to have that. All right. Last up, we got the XLF. We got the financials. Financials have been absolutely ripping ever since Trump got through the election and won, and suddenly we have this huge move to the upside. We're at record levels to the upside in so many different other parts of the market, and the financials is another one of those that just continues to rip to the upside. You can take your pick on the names, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, you got Morgan Stanley. A lot of these names just continue to rip to the upside. They think there might be a little bit more of a looser sort of a regulatory, and that I think is something that's very accurate. And so because of that, we just continue to move. We continue to see every couple of days, almost every day, it feels like XLF, and the sizes that they're putting on here are absolutely outrageous. But I think investment banking is still, that's what I've been banking on the entire year with the financials. I continue to lean to that. And if they loosen up a little bit from the regulatory perspective, I think there's still room to the upside. What about you? We keep seeing this UOA. What do you think right now, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, you know that I love UOA. And also, just a question for anyone out there. Can you trade 8.5 million shares of the XLF? No? Well, perhaps with very, very cheap options, which is what you get in the XLF time and time again, whether it's ripping or not. These guys can. Maybe still 85,000. That's probably still a lot for most of us here. But these are 21-cent options that they're picking up out in December at the 53 strike. It's a little bit out of the money, but it's not out of the question for them to hit this. And they're also hitting 64,000 of the January 55 strike. Stock's at about $50 and change. They get them for 11 to 17 cents. If you can measure your risk, which you can do with these really, really cheap options, I think you can take a bite out of this. And the last question that I'll just leave you guys with before we move on to sports is, if you could go back to late 2020, early 2021, and these QBTS type meme stocks are sort of ripping and financials are doing really well and the market's being pretty consistent, what would you do if you could go back and trade it then? Because with small caps doing really, really well, economy looking like it might pick up at the beginning of an election cycle, I kind of think that's where we're going.
Yeah, sure feels that way. You're exactly right. All right, next up, before we get to sports, we got to run something for you because this is a classic.
We are returning our season tickets for the 1993 season through the 2032 season.
It might be my favorite stick on Saturday Night Live.
We are also returning our Bear Smugs, our Bears double beer helmets, our giant #1 foam hand, our official I'm a Bear orange and blue body paint and
They really jumped off, man.
the remnants of a sandwich handed to us by Mike Singletary in the Bears 5th quarter VIP lounge annex, and finally our Mr. Bear Bears ears, for we can no longer wear them with pride in front of our friends and business associates. Further,
great.
we have vowed never again to pass Soldier Field on our way to work. Instead, turning off on Cermak, making a right on Wabash until we hit the Walgreens, then hanging a sharp Louis and going all the way up on LaSalle, turning right and finally rejoining Lakeshore Drive on Falmouth, so as to spare ourselves the sight of that.
He's about ready to burst out laughing.
Edifice of shame.
That is a classic. Jared, thank you for doing that, man. We weren't going to run the whole thing, and we decided, the heck with it, man. We're going to run it. It's just too classic. All right. We're going to jump now. The super fans are awesome. We're going to jump now to something. First of all, how you like me now? And I'm going to throw that out to all the haters out there. Justin, you wouldn't believe it. All these people mad at me saying, hey, Pete, you're really high on this Bo Nix guy. You're wrong. He is not the real thing. He's not this. He's not that. Well, Caleb Williams went #1. Jaden Daniels went #2. We got Drake May went #3. We got Michael Penix went #8. We got J.J. McCarthy goes #10. This was a monster quarterback draft. Then Bo Nix finally went. And he was in the first round, but he went 12th. He was the last of those quarterbacks to go in the first round. Here's the thing. You look at where he is now. He's got a team that's got a better record than they had all of last year in terms of wins. They're right there, and they are potentially a playoff team, potentially. They're sitting right on the cusp of this whole thing. He's throwing 65% completions. He's got 2,200 yards. He's got 14 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So I want all the haters out there to understand, why did I think Bo Nix could play in the NFL? Because the kid had the best completion average last year. I know it's college football. I'm very well aware of that. But he actually, as part of his team, was literally the catalyst that led them. He's doing the same thing in Denver. They figured it out fairly quickly. He was able to follow up a quarterback that they then shot out to Pittsburgh, and everything seems to be going pretty daggone well there. I got to tell you, we've got another group of quarterbacks coming out this year, and the top 3 are Shedeur Sanders, that's Deion's son. You've got Cam Ward, who's doing an unbelievable job, probably goes to the Raiders. And then you've got Jason Milroe from Alabama. The curious part for me is, I see all these great quarterbacks, and why are they not great at the next level? The New York Giants just paid a guy, basically call it a couple $100 million, and now they're getting rid of him. They just paid him just a couple of years ago, this big contract, and he's out. But that's the way the NFL is. And I'll tell you, what makes it easier to assess the players who are going to have success is watching them carefully, not looking at the combine. Watch them carefully and see what they do in a real game against real competition. And I think it makes it a lot easier. But every year, these GMs try to outsmart each other, and they do all this stuff. It's just crazy, man. Have you been watching college football a lot this year, or NFL, or where do you stand on these things? Because there are some great quarterbacks out there that are coming out this coming year and last year as well. And I'll tell you what, some of them I think are going to be complete flops, Chicago, but I don't know. It's going to be funny to watch. We'll see how this whole thing plays out. What do you think?
Okay, 3 things. First of all, I hate that this Rebel's Edge had to remind me of a time where SNL was funny. Because it's really funny during that clip.
You got to go way back. You got to go.
Yeah. Second of all, Bo Nix set the rookie QB record for wins, just wins offensive rookie of the month in October. And I think when you're talking about how they handle themselves, one thing that, whether you look at stats or you just watch the game, he just feels like he's not a typical rookie. He has veteran composure on the field. And that's a really, really tough to teach thing. I think just going back to that discipline, whether you have it in football or whether you have it in trading or what have you, it's obviously huge. And I watch a little bit. I watch every now and again, but I'm not as caught up as you and likely John and everybody else. I'm always just here for the conversation, getting filled in on what I should know.
Yeah, it's fun. I'll tell you what, it's a lot of fun. I know more about it than a lot of people, only because I got a sports show that we do on Sundays, and it's a lot of fun. And we were talking about some of these types of topics just yesterday, and they're phenomenal. I look at Michael Penix. He hasn't really been on the field, but that's a guy who's another one who I think is an outstanding quarterback who kind of slid down a little bit as well. He played at the University of Washington. All right, the shakeup in college sports, college football particularly. So we're sitting there looking at this thing going, all right, we got a 12-team playoff. It's going to be just a bunch of SEC schools. That's all it's going to be. That's what everybody was saying. And, of course, you got to have Alabama in there. You got to have Georgia in there. You got to have Texas in there. Well, whoa. Pump the brakes just a little bit, guys. It is a little bit different than expected. Now, I started off the season saying I don't think a single school is going to be left standing without at least one blemish on their record. Right now, we only got one. It's Oregon. And that could change. You never know. I mean, Ohio State should have and almost did beat them, but they missed it because of the clock, and they didn't use the clock properly at the end of the game. So that was one of their closest calls for sure. And Ohio State's a heck of a football team. But I'll tell you this. I look at this playoff, and what if I told you this? Right now, unless something really strange happens, Alabama's got 3 losses. They're probably out. Ole Miss has 3 losses, probably out. Texas A&M has 3 losses. They're probably out. Colorado, even with Deion Sanders, they now have 3 losses. They play in a conference that people don't have as much respect for, the Big 12. They probably should, but they don't. So with his 3 losses, I'm going to say none of those guys are going to be in the playoff, which is amazing because they were all pretty close except for Colorado. They're guaranteed to be in there. Well, with 3 losses, the idea that they're going to be in there is probably a little bit stretched. Have you been watching this and the craziness this past weekend, especially all these games that really turned? And it's just amazing because there's a whole new, and I think this is good. It's because of the portal, might have a little something to do with NIL, but more about the portal and the movement that we are seeing for players. I'll tell you what, there are teams out there that will be playing in this playoff that nobody thought would be probably back in September. What do you think?
Yeah, you're talking about games that turn. One that didn't even have time to turn. Bama and Oklahoma, unranked, 24-3, nasty. If I'm getting knocked out and it's 24-3, I don't even want to finish. Just get me to the next season. Let's just see what happens. This is embarrassing.
They got the Iron Bowl, man. They got to play Auburn this week, so they still got the one more game. My Golden Gophers have Wisconsin. They unfortunately had a loss. I was at the game. We lost by a point to Penn State, who's really, really a pretty good football team. We were right there. They outplayed us at the very end. They had a fake punt that gave them the opportunity to run the clock out. And otherwise, we had a shot at winning. We lost, I think, 26-25. It was a really great game, but college football has finally gotten a lot more parity, and that's a good thing. I always think that's a good thing. Right now, Big Ten has 4. You got Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana. The SEC has 3, Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee. ACC's got 2, Independent, Notre Dame. They lost to Northern Illinois at the beginning of the season. It looked like they were going to be cooked. They were going to go down the drain. But they're there, and they look great. They've gotten better and better. And how about this Mountain West? You get a team like Boise State. You got this running back who might be the best running back I've seen since Barry Sanders, and this guy is special. I think it would be a lot of fun for Boise State to be in there. It looks like they will be, but you just never know. You never know because it's not always in their hands, but that should be pretty fun.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much last minute, Justin. Really appreciate it because, John's always flying around. You never know what the heck he's up to, but it's great that you were able to come on, and I appreciate it, man. Really a fun show. We got a lot of unusual option activity. Hopefully everybody's focused on that and understands what we're talking about there. If not, you got to go to Market Rebellion. Oh, by the way, we got a March thing. We got another event coming up. We just had one in Miami. Now we're going to Vegas. If you've never been to one of our conferences in Vegas, we've had a bunch of them. We've had some big ones. This RebelCon 2025 is going to be awesome. And of course, the MGM Grand. I mean, that's old school Vegas, man. That's what makes it so fun. So that's March 22nd. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I would just say we don't gamble on options, but if you want to come hang out with us and do some degenerate gambling, it'll be a ton of fun. And yeah, you should come to Vegas. Absolutely. It's going to be great.
That's going to be great. All right, folks. We'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Giddy up.